You don't wake up one day and just become a fake version of yourself. It happens a lot slower than that. One adjustment at a time, one filtered opinion, one episode at a time, one whatever works response at a time, until eventually you're not really choosing your fate. It's all predestined for you. You're not choosing how you show up for people anymore. You're just reacting to the given room that you're in. And at some point that starts to feel like you're lost. And I think there's a lot of people out there these days that are feeling lost for this exact reason. You know, there's a big phase that a lot of people end up going into where they hear the advice like, oh, fake it till you make it and you know, put your best foot forward. And at first, that sounds super useful. I've used it myself. It's helped me get through some tough days. I'll acknowledge it is good advice on its face, but when you take it deeper and you extrapolate it, sometimes you do have to show up for yourself before you actually feel ready. Sometimes confidence comes after the action instead of before it. I'll give it that. But there's a part of that idea that people don't really talk about. If you spend too long operating in fake it mode without ever defining what's actually underneath the hood, you might not end up building that true confidence. You might get like imposter syndrome or just feel like you're a fraud. You end up becoming adaptable in a way that slowly replaces you. And that version of you can get through a lot of situations. You know, it could help you perform and it could help you fit in. It could help you with your social awkwardness. It could help people start to like you. But over time, you might notice that something subtly starts to build up. You might start to notice that people start responding more to the version of you that you present than when the little bits and pieces of your actual personality come out. And eventually, even if you could fake it and lock in and really make it, you know, eventually you could start losing track of where one part of you ends and the next one begins. And, well, I don't think anybody wants to sign up for an identity crisis. And man, there is a version of so many parts of us out there that people actually know. Like the version of you that people actually know, a lot of people don't realize, but the you other people know isn't a single entity. It isn't a single thing. It's actually a collection of different decisions you make in various different contexts. You know, there's the version of you at work, or at school. A lot of people would say that that's a performance, and maybe it's supposed to be. There's a version of you that you're with your boys. There's a version of you when you go to, I guess, Thanksgiving with the family. There's a version of you in my comment section where you scream at me. Like, you know what's funny is I actually do get really nice comments, but the version of you that you're trying to make a good impression on somebody, that certainly exists, and that could be an absolute people pleaser like I am, but there's also the version of you that comes out when not a single other person is around. And this video is really about holding on to that person, understanding that person and understanding where they come from, and then blending it into what you actually are trying to get done in a given conversation, context, friendship, relationship, whatever it is. You know, each individual version of yourself that you show in different situations, it makes up its own environment. There's a reason why it exists. But if you strip away the context, what's actually there? What's constant? What's the prevailing personality? And for a lot of people, that question doesn't really have the cleanest answer. So it could create a lot of mental conflict and create a lot of, I guess, identity crises that they don't really need to have. And it could damage relationships. It could damage friendships. It could damage the person themselves. And it's not because anything is actually missing there, but it's more so because identity has been shaped by more so reactions to things than actually choosing to be a specific thing. Or I guess choosing to be a specific type of person. If you don't have that choice, then you're kind of a prisoner in your own life. And this is where things get really tricky. Adaptation definitely works. There's a reason why the human brain overthinks. It's actually a feature, it's not a bug. But this adaptation only works until it starts running the show and taking over your personality. People adapt constantly. Like that's normal. If you're an adaptation type of person, you have anxiety, you're actually normal. You're actually functioning how humans are supposed to survive. You don't talk to your boss the same way that you talk to your closest friend. It's just not how it works. You're not going to be sitting in your boss's office and be like, yo, what up, dude? What up, piece of shit? Like, you're not talking to your boss like that. And that's the way it's supposed to be. You don't act in a quiet room the same way that you act in a loud one where everybody's talking. You know, that kind of adjustment is just being socially intelligent. But unfortunately, being more socially intelligent doesn't always equal making the best life choices and feeling the happiest. In fact, a lot of the people who are optimizing their life constantly, they end up with the most problems. But when you're adjusting constantly in social dynamics like you're supposed to, it usually happens gradually. But when adaptation stops being something you do and starts becoming something you default to in every situation, just mirroring everybody around you and people pleasing, instead of choosing how to show up, instead of bringing your yin to the yang, you start reading the room first and then adjusting second. It's like you're adjusting your trajectory regardless of what you want to shoot. And I'm only bringing this up because this is something that I can absolutely relate to. This is a big struggle of mine. You know, I like to say like, oh, I keep it real, especially with my friends, yada yada yada. But there really is, if I'm unpacking and I'm being truthfully honest with you guys, like this video is supposed to be, I'm not always like that. I'm not always confident. I'm not always just showing my side regardless of what other people think. Sometimes somebody will be like, hey man, like, you know, do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Like, how do you feel about this? And I'll look to see kind of what they're on about it, try to gauge how they're feeling. And then I'll try to match it. I'll be like, oh yeah, like I could see that, you know, I'm leaving doors open, and that's good for having a good free-flowing conversation. But at a certain point, if I'm not representing my side, if I'm not representing my opinion, like let's say I have a friend who wants to go out to the bar, and they're like, yo, like, do you want to go out to the bar? Want to go this weekend? You know, like, it'll be fun. There'll be, you know, a lot of good music and dancing and drinks and yada 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 and social interaction. And I know myself, like, I don't like bars. Like, there's a piece of me that wants to tell them, like, yeah, no, like, I don't really like bars. Not my scene. You want to come to my house, have a few drinks? I'm down. I'm not going out to the bar. But who wants to be that buzzkill? Unless you're really, really comfortable, who wants to be that guy? So there truthfully are some situations where I might just be like, oh yeah, maybe. I'll let you know. Maybe. And then it's just kind of like a, why did I do that? Why did I say that? It sucks, but it really is human nature. And it's because of caring. It's because you don't want to disappoint people. You don't want to put people in a weird, awkward predicament. You would just want to have a good time, good conversation, and it's human nature. You might be in a conversation and your tone changes automatically, or your opinions get softened and pushed down and rounded down to the nearest decimal before they're actually spoken. And maybe your humor gets filtered based on, ooh, like, is this gonna be a risky joke? Like, am I gonna use friend group A humor on friend group B? And even silence gets used almost strategically, I guess. But if you don't try out that friend group A joke on friend group B, how will you ever know if you truly have something in common with friend group B? This makes me think back to my most recent job. I used to work at a bank, and it's a very like hoity-toity, you know, hold yourself together type of environment. Of course, because you're dealing with money, you're dealing with confidential information. Definitely makes sense. I signed up for it, I understand. But I had this one coworker who, you know, like, we had a good dynamic, and like, yeah, like the jokes were going around, yada yada yada. Things were good. I'm like, oh, like this person has a good sense of humor. She's pretty cool. And I remember one day, you know, it was a lot of NPC humor. It was a lot of like, oh, haha, make fun of you, make fun of me, yada yada yada. But one day, for some reason, we're like alone, we're in the vault, we're counting up money or something, and I just decided to make like more of a messed up joke. Like, I have a messed up sense of humor. I'm not like crazy or ridiculous or whatever, but like sometimes an inappropriate joke really makes me laugh. It's just my comedian brain. I like a lot of things like stand up or whatever, but I made this joke, and in my head I'm like, ooh, like that is, if that doesn't land, that might be a problem. That might be this person thinks I'm weird. And I said the joke, and she actually like hit it back and was like, oh, like thought it was funny, made her own joke. And I was like, oh, like cool, like we have this almost like this trust fall that happened, and I wouldn't know that she was cool, and she wouldn't know if I was cool if we didn't kind of take that risk. Now, I'm not saying it's a good idea to go into a job and create an HR nightmare, but like, you can push the envelope. Because there's gonna be people out there who don't like you. That much is guaranteed in this life. But would you rather have a lot of people like you 6 out of 10, 5 out of 10, or a select group of a smaller circle of people who love you, like 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10? I know what I would rather pick. But yeah, man, I don't know. I think a lot of people don't need a completely new version of themselves. I think if you're watching this video, unless you're literally like clinically insane, like sociopathic, I really feel like you're fine. I feel like you're perfectly fine the way you are. If you put yourself out there, you will find people out there that are like you and who will love you as much as you love them. I'm a weird, quirky dude with a funny sense of humor and an interesting way of looking at the world that isn't super normal. I've never been a super normal person, but I have a group of friends who genuinely love me for who I am, and I think a lot of that came my way just by being myself, pushing the envelope, not being afraid to show who I am. Like, you know, show my scars, show who I am, show my story, and then kind of letting the crowd decide. So if you're watching this, I think you need a little bit more of that. Let me know in the comments, guys. I have a challenge for you. Let me know in the comments right now if you're watching this. Do you show 100% of yourself to everybody? Who do you censor yourself from? Let me know. I love these conversations we have in the comments. Perfect place to really let that happen. And I just love interacting with you guys. And if you look in the description, you'll see my super secret Discord. A lot of crazy stuff going on in there. I'm not going to expand on it. Go find out. So yeah, be yourself. Don't be afraid to. You're going to be just fine. And even if you're not, like, who cares?